Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Speaking and Communicating podcast. Today, I have Brenden. If you've seen the YouTube channel MasterTalk, he is the master behind MasterTalk. And before I go any further, help me welcome Brenden. Hi, Brenden.
Hey, Roberta. Thanks so much for having me on. It's so kind.
So good to have you here. I actually saw your YouTube channel long before we had this conversation or decided that we were going to record today's podcast. When did you get started with that?
Yeah, I started the YouTube channel in 2019, so 3 years ago, and I started coaching specifically 6 years ago.
You started coaching before the YouTube channel?
Oh, yeah. So what happened was when I was in university, I used to do these things called business competitions, like case comps.
Right.
Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So all the guys my age playing basketball or rugby or cricket or something else. I was doing the presentation nerd version of that. So I did presentations competitively. That's how I learned how to speak. And then I started coaching people who were younger than me on how to communicate ideas because we didn't have a communication coach growing up. And then 3 years of doing that, I was mostly doing it for free back then. I probably coached like 75 to 100 people on how to speak. And that's what led to the YouTube channel MasterTalk, because the 3 years that I spent coaching the kids, I call them my kids, but they're really like, they were my age, on how to communicate. It wasn't available for free, so I started posting videos.
Right. Was that something you were asked to do or your own initiative?
To be honest, it was the mix of both. So what happened, no one's ever asked me that before. So what happened was I landed a great job at IBM as a consultant. And a few months before I started working, I just went back to my students that I spent years coaching and honing. And they all asked me a question that I didn't have an answer to. And the question was, how did you learn how to speak?
Mm-hmm.
And I always responded with, well, I don't really know. I didn't have money for a coach. I kind of just figured it out on my own, made thousands of mistakes, literally. And they said, oh, well, I look at YouTube videos, I read books, I do this. And I was like, why would you do any of that? But everyone kept saying the word YouTube. I was just curious because I had 3 months to kill before working at IBM. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, let me just go watch YouTube videos. So I opened YouTube and I just typed public speaking tips and I typed enter. And I just was horrified by the content available on the internet because I started watching all these videos and I was like, this is terrible. You have advice like be yourself or get up on stage. And I was like, this makes no sense. There's no practicality. So I just got really frustrated after actually a few hours of that I started making my own videos.
So you basically identified a gap in the market and you filled the gap.
Yeah, basically it was like everything that was in my head and what I believed about communication wasn't already on YouTube. So let's say, for example, you want to be a cook and you have this recipe on grilled cheese. I mean, there's a lot of great grilled cheese recipes. So there might be a unique edge to yours, but there's still a lot of great stuff out there. But in public speaking, I was horrified. I was like, this is terrible. And that's what led to my ascension.
MasterTalk.
Yeah.
I hear you, but I just want clarity on the part where you says they say be yourself. What do you have against that?
Ooh, I like that question. Okay, now we're gonna get spicy here. It's good. So be yourself isn't advice. Like, okay, so somebody pays me thousands of dollars of coaching. They sit down, they go, what do I do, Brenden? I just go, be yourself. Wow. Oh my God. Let me just do the mind book. Thank you so much. This was so worth $10,000. What?
The reason I ask is usually when I coach people, I always say to them, take all the tips and the techniques I have shared with you, but don't act out a Tony Robbins persona on stage. Be Brenden with all the techniques incorporated into the speech. That's why I was wondering if you just meant it. Oh, okay, all right.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, because you're giving much better feedback there. Like I was just hearing "be yourself," and there was no context. Have more energy. Be yourself. Like, wow, this is like life-changing
content,
stuff.
the delivery, and everything else, which you're gonna come to. So that's how you started, and then how did you get started on the actual coaching business? So you were coaching the younger kids at university. You were at IBM, and then take us to the next part of your journey.
Yes, so definitely when I started the YouTube channel, that was the first time in my life that I had money, by the way. So I grew up with I'm sure you had a different life than I did, so I can't even compare myself to you. But relative to other Canadians in my country, I was definitely the lower percentile. of income growing up. My parents were both minimum wage workers pretty much. And for me, that was the first year I was making six figures. It was like completely like life changing. So honestly, the first year of MasterTalk wasn't a business, Roberta. I was just enjoying life. I was traveling, I was working as a consultant. Life was amazing. And I never wanted to turn this to business. It was kind of like my fun side project that I was just making videos every week. And I wasn't taking
But
it seriously.
isn't that the dream? Doing what you love and getting paid for it, it doesn't even feel like work.
You're right. I mean, to be honest, the YouTube channel, the first year, it felt like a lot of work. I actually didn't like the videos. I didn't like making them. And the reason is because not the content itself. Obviously, I love making the content. The whole like taking a camera, pressing record, sitting on a couch.
Behind the scenes stuff.
I just obviously now my team handles it for me, which is like a godsend. But like the first year, oh my God. So yeah, I had no intention of making this a business. What happened was 9 months into MasterTalk, the YouTube channel, I went to a personal development conference called Summit of Greatness. It's an event in Columbus, Ohio. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's in the US, hosted by a guy named Lewis Howes. So he's the host.
I know him. I've seen his YouTube interviews. Yes, he interviews some really great people. Yeah, I know.
Oh yeah, Lewis. Yeah. Lewis is amazing. So yeah, Lewis is definitely a hero of mine. And then what happened?
Player, right?
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, yes, I know Lewis. Yeah, sorry.
Absolutely. So yeah, Lewis is a good guy. But the key was I went to Lewis's conference because I've been following him since I was 20. Like I listened to hundreds of episodes of his podcast. A lot of my growth was because of him. So, I wanted to go see what his event was like. Maybe I could meet him and talk to him. So I took a flight there and I met my business partner there. And he's the one who was like, hey, you got a gold mine here. You're like one of the most talented kids I've ever seen in communication. Why don't you just coach me for free and I'll coach you for free? So we started coaching each other. And I realized really quickly that what I had was a lot more than just some YouTube channel I wasn't paying much attention to. I had an opportunity to change millions of lives as destiny. And that's what he helped me realize. He was like, hey, Brenden, like you're the youngest communication coach in the world. If you actually take this seriously, you could be the next Dale Carnegie and help billions of people in the world. So I had a much bigger mission with it. And then what happened, how this turned to a business officially. So Bombsy was my first kind of helper. He helped me get my first clients. So most of my clients are executives today. That's where I found a niche in technology executives. And that's how I was able to grow the business. Because obviously in communication coaching, if you're really good at what you do, you get people results. Right. They'll naturally.
They will testify for you and find even more clients for you. That's right.
Correct. So it's a great business to be in. So I scaled really quickly and I quit IBM like super fast, actually. It only took a year and a half and I was gone.
Right. And speaking of tech executives, actually, as I was saying earlier, that even my first job back in the 90s, I worked with engineers and I realized that in the tech industry, usually that's one of the skills that's not emphasized on. And because as a society, we box nerds into, oh, you're just socially awkward. You're just good with computers and you sit there quietly and do your brilliant work. And so some of them, they do embrace that personality. And as they go up the ladder, the communication part becomes. So how do you find that when working with them? What are some of the things you can share with us? What's been your experience?
I mean, you probably know just as much as I do, Roberta. So it's humbling that you're asking me that. But yes, I mean, you're absolutely spot on. So what happens with these engineers, people in STEM, tech, science and technology, they do really well early in their careers, right? So their salary increases really, really rapidly. The task that they do increases rapidly. Their delivery is exceptional. Most of them are talented. And then at some point they block because they realize at some point in their career that everything they did before, they can no longer do if they want to get promoted. Because if you want to become a vice president of engineering, you want to become a VP of software, you want to become a VP of infra. Well, if you want to get to that level, most of your job is people management now. You have to talk to people. You have to engage.
You're a project manager. You no longer do the project work. You put a project team together.
Exactly. And at that point, what's great about that niche, so I tried a bunch of different niches, but to your point, that's the one that worked for me as well. And because they also got money. And their companies want to invest in them because they want them to be leaders because there's a huge lack of talent, especially in tech. And that's why my business scaled up so rapidly, because all of those technical guys, when you make them a better communicator, it completely changes the ethos of their existence. Like, it changes their life. It's not just about their career, the relationship with their wives, their husbands gets better, the relationship with their kids. So the loyalty they have to you as the person who can deliver the result, they'll refer their entire families to. That's what's happened with me.
Because you don't just change the professional life, the entire life.
Correct. In the same way you do it with your incredible clients, I'm sure.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Brenden. So, have you heard of the statistics? More people are afraid of public speaking than they are of death.
I have. And that's one of the things I don't like about the industry, but sure, give me the question.
So when you hear that, what comes to mind?
Here's what comes to mind. If we as communication coaches, as communication professionals, want to help people communicate better, the worst thing that we can do is start our speeches by going, hey, by the way, after death, it's communication. How is that helping people? I see so many. This is what frustrated me about them. Not you, Roberta. You're awesome.
Oh, you
like
see, thank you, Brenden.
A lot of people in the industry, of course, my pleasure. You're awesome. You have a great heart. But a lot of people in the industry, and they do too, I'm sure. It's just they don't think about. I'm like, okay, if you're a communication professional, and you have a PhD in communication, and your goal is to help people communicate better, why are we starting every speech like that? Is that really going to help people? Like,
isn't that a selling point? As in, I know most of you are suffering from this, and I have the solution. I'm thinking, is it a marketing ploy?
It could be. I mean, we could guess all day, but I for me personally, it doesn't rub well. So for me, it's more about that's why I'm so passionate about this industry, and why I've gotten the success I have is because I really care, right? I was really annoyed. So for me, the what I think of is a question that a lot of us don't ask ourselves, and the question is, how would our lives change if we were an exceptional communicator? How would the world change if we were an exceptional communicator? Most of communication is around fear, it's around anxiety, it's around stress. So many of us, Roberta, we dream about our vacations. We dream about the incredible things we want to buy, the Christmas gifts that we want to get for our children, our nephews, our nieces, our families. But how many of us dream about our communication skills? So start to dream.
Do we even talk about that with our friends in our social circles?
We don't, right? So that's probably the best way to get better is to start imagining ourselves becoming. Why is it important to us? Because communication is so much more than getting a job promotion. It's the way we talk to our families. It's the strangers that we meet at a park. It's the way that we order ice cream at a restaurant. It's every little interaction of our lives. Communication makes our life more fulfilling, not just our paychecks. And once we figure out that internal reason, we get excited about communication, which the statistics that you brought forth doesn't help us achieve.
I actually prefer that way. Look at a future where your communication skills are top notch versus scaring you with stats.
Exactly.
That are just going to make you feel worse than you already do about public speaking, which doesn't help. You're right.
Absolutely. Like, think of the fear of communication. We both know the medical term for glossophobia. I have never said that word once on my YouTube channel. Not even once.
Because you don't focus on the fear, focus on the solution and what the person can become if their communication skills got better.
Exactly.
So just in general, in summary, what are some of the things you can share with people? How to get started? Those who say, Brenden, I've never spoken in front of any crowd before, not even in front of my family, when they are, all attention on me and I'm giving a speech at a wedding or something. What is the first thing that somebody needs to look into if they say, I want to start improving my communication skills?
Absolutely. So since your podcast is really related to communication specifically, so that I can imagine there's a lot of communication nerds who are listening to this right now. So I'm going to give 3 very specific tips that I feel that are uniquely from me. So let me share those things because they'll help. So then other communication will share the other stuff. So the first thing is an understanding as to why the fear of communication exists. Not a lot of people cover this, so I'll start with that. So let's think about this, Roberta, right? Where do we give most of our presentations growing up as a kid? Because that's where we learn the habits of presenting to begin with. And the answer is as you probably guessed, school,
Of course.
elementary school, high school, etc. But the challenge, Roberta, is all of those presentations have three main core problems. The first one is 100% of all of those presentations are mandatory. We don't wake up one
Yes,
morning
your
and
oral
say,
test and your do the book report. Yeah.
exactly. We don't wake up one morning and say, hey, Roberta, you want to get breakfast to present all day? Says nobody. Nobody does that, right? So issue number one, when something's forced, when every single thing is forced, somebody doesn't want to do it. Number two, every presentation is different. You're always presentation switching. This is what I call it. And you never get to pick the topic too. So let's dive into that. History class, math class, science class, French class, English class. You're always switching presentation. You're doing 8 presentations at the same time. So you're obviously not going to get better. And the other piece is you never get to pick the topic, to your point. The book reports, the Shakespeare, you're like, who am I shaking? I have no idea.
Oh, don't get me started on Shakespeare. I used to ask my English teacher, Mrs. Why doesn't he speak proper English like we do? She would just look at me, shake her head, and tell me to go sit on my desk.
It's hilarious. I love how you're relating to love. This is so much fun because most people are like, they just nod and they go, that makes sense, but you're like relating to it. So I love it. And then there's number three, Roberta. And number three is the most important. Every presentation, every single one is tied to a punishment. So it's never, oh, is Roberta excited about this bridge that she has in her background? Let's clap as she delivers this presentation and celebrate her. No, that's not how it works at school. Every presentation is 30% of our grade, 20% of our grade. If you don't do a great job.
Or if you don't do the report at all, get 0 and then you're going to get an F at the end of the semester and all that. Yeah, yeah.
And then all these communication professionals, they're going, oh yeah, this is the fear of communication is closer to death. Really? I mean, when we think about that.
What do you think about debate, Tims? Do you think they're effective at all?
Let me jump in, but let me just close that analogy really quick. No, you're totally fine. And then I'll answer the debate. But the point I want to drive is like a lot of people in the industry, they go like the fear is closer to death. Whereas my opinion is like, well, isn't it no wonder that people are scared of communication? If you did something like basketball and somebody hit you on the head every time you missed a basket, would you like basketball? Like, no.
Of course not. It's tied to punishment.
Right? Like, and that's what, like, I coach kids. I don't do that for money. It's kind of just a small group. And I get results for 100% of them. Not like 90% of them, 100% of them. Because I just change those rules. I just let them pick the presentation. I let them give feedback to each other. And I only have them present one presentation. So they're not stressed out about giving it. They're excited. And there's no grade.
So even in the psyche, public speaking is not associated with pain.
Exactly. Exactly. It's associated with pleasure. That's the way I think about it. So yes, I think that's why I'm such a big believer. This is one of my ethos, my legacy, is I think every human being can be an exceptional communicator once they understand that piece of why the fear of communication even exists.
Yes, back to the debate teams. Are they effective at all? Or do they, I'll be honest, I was never in a debate team in high school, but are they associated with the level of punishment as well? Because it sounds like an extracurricular commitment. So if you don't do your part, do you know if there was anything or it was just an extra, so it was more flexible?
Great question. So the way I think about debate is, so let's say we compare that to case competition, which is similar. So case competitions is more like a business gives you a problem and you solve the problem. Whoever has the best solution wins the case competition. Whereas in debate, it's more like you're opposing situation. What I found from experience is most people who do debate are almost all exceptional communicators, like they become exceptional. And the reason is simple. It's not because of the format, it's because it's optional and it creates a sense of competition. So the people, like, for example, take me. The reason I got really good as a speaker is not because of my raw talent, it's because I'm competitive. I really wanted to win these case competitions, so I worked on my game. Same thing with debate. Even if people don't like debate, as long as it's optional, they choose to opt in, like they want to do it.
Right.
They get really motivated because they don't want to lose.
Process.
Exactly. They don't want to lose. So that's why I would say almost all of the people I've known in debate have went on to become really good speakers. Yeah.
So you must want it, and if you have a competitive nature, you're obviously gonna constantly improve and excel. in doing it.
Correct. Or you create that incentive.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the things that makes you connect with your audience when you're on stage?
I would say for me, it's all about having dinner with them. So what do I mean by this? I would say the biggest problem, because a lot of people ask me, how do you engage your audience? I always ask a simple question, like, how much did you prepare for? And it's always very little. Whereas the way that I think about this is I always say to my clients, and I'll quote that, is good communicators, good speakers know their audience, but exceptional communicators understand their audience more than they understand themselves. So let me start that again. Okay. Great communicators, like, good communicators understand their audience as well, but exceptional communicators, world-class communicators, top-notch communicators understand their audiences more than they understand themselves. So what's the difference there? Because the difference is very different.
Right.
So it's very big. So when you're an exceptional communicator, you're not just delivering a presentation. Your whole presentation is the entire atmosphere you're creating. It's the conversations you have after the presentation is over. So I've had long dinners with a lot of my friends still to this day, where I ask them questions about public speaking, get their pain points. But because I'm spending those hours, I'm getting to know them, getting to know their personality, who they are, what do they dream about, what do they care about. So I'm able to message my presentation better to the audience.
Feed into that.
Right. Exactly. Like, think about this podcast right now. I usually don't talk about where the fear of communication comes from, but since I know intellectually that if this is a communication podcast, there's a lot of nerds who are listening to this right now.
Right.
I want to go into levels of detail that they would be fascinated that no other professional would talk about on a show. So that's an example. But I think the key is have dinner with your audience. It's simple, but not easy. Nobody does it.
Yeah, that's a very good one. And then secondly, what else when presenting, when on stage, what are some of the ways you can get them involved in the process so that they don't just sit there for 45 minutes and then start twitching on their phones? And, how can you get them in? What are some of the things that get them involved, make them excited and participate with you instead of just talking and giving a 45-minute lecture?
Well, one of my mentors, Andy Enriquez, he calls this WIIFM radio. What's in it for me?
For me.
Right? What's in it for me? So, and what he means by that, kind of let me add my own spin to this. This is a strategy I use. I recommunicate the thoughts that are in my audience's heads back to them. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm giving a keynote. I might say something like this. I'm sure all of you are looking at me and probably thinking, well, Brendan's a great communicator, but I can never do that. I can never get on a stage. I can never share an idea. But let me tell you, when I got started as a kid, and then so notice how I'm communicating my audience's thoughts out loud. So they go, oh, that's exactly what I was thinking. Is this dude like a mind reader?
Yeah. Remember when we were talking earlier about online coaching and I said you are required to speak their language? How they see Brenden when they are standing, when they're sitting there and you're standing in front of them. So yeah, that's a very good one. Yes. You may be thinking this and this and that. I really like it. So by then they're engaged, they throw away their phones. They really want to hear what you have to say.
Exactly.
And
that's why the dinner is so important.
Yes, because you found out what is in their heads regarding the whole process. What else can you do to get them involved?
I would say that's the big one. That's the easiest one. The other one is, I was about to sneeze, sorry. The other one is, don't be shy to take risks. I'm a big believer in testing with small audiences before you try bigger ones. So what do I mean by this? When you prep a speech, and let's say you have a keynote to 500 people, I wouldn't test anything with 500 people. I would just gather a group of 5 to 10 people and try just a bunch of strategies. And they'll tell me, my honest friends will tell me, this works, this doesn't, this sucks. I'm always testing new ideas. And then when I see something works, I use it, I stick with it. So for example, one strategy I use that I like is questions. So for example, whenever I do a keynote, I always go, let's all take out your phones, your piece of paper, something to write down. I just want everyone to reflect for 2 minutes right now. How would the world change if you're an exceptional communicator? Go ahead and take 2 minutes and just think about that right now. So this is an example. So I like asking questions. That's the way I do it. Right. Second one is voicing thoughts out loud. And if I had to give a third one, to involve the audience, I would probably throw a mic down their way, like in the sense of, I'd just be like, okay, could I get a volunteer to do something or to
Right.
reflect on what they're hearing so far? Let's play the third thing. But I think the point I want to drive here is don't get lost in the tactics where people are listening. Like pick one and run with it. Don't just go, oh, like I could do this. Don't look at the restaurant menu, like order something.
Yes.
Like on the
Pick
menu.
one
Also make
and make that effective. I like the questions and actually getting them to answer them or write them on a piece of paper. That really gets them involved. Because if you just say, oh, imagine if what it'd be like if you're an exceptional communicator, and and then you carry on. Some speakers do that. They don't even say, close your eyes and imagine a day when you stand in front of it. They just say, oh, everybody, imagine if you're an exceptional, what would that look like? All right, now let's get back to slide number 4. So that's a very good way to get them involved. Now, before I ask for your social media handles, what more do you want to share with our listeners today? You've shared such a wealth of information.
Absolutely.
What more do you want to give us?
What more do you? I can end with a book recommendation that I don't think a lot of communication professionals talk about. And the book is called Thirst by Scott Harrison. So Scott Harrison is the CEO of
Say
Charity
that again.
Water. Thirst by Scott Harrison.
Okay.
So Scott Harrison is the CEO of Charity Water. He's raised $500 million in funding for his nonprofit, gets people access to clean water. He's done some incredible work with Charity Water. And what I really like about his style is he's the practical version of storytelling and communication. He doesn't just talk about storytelling. He's applied it to raise $500 million in money to help people. And I think it's a practical example of how somebody leveraged a lot of the principles we talked about for a real tangible result. So yeah, I highly recommend people check out that book.
Thirst.
Yeah.
Okay. Stuart Harrison. Now, we almost closed without the storytelling part because we talk about storytelling and its impact a lot. Give us a 2-minute dissertation on storytelling.
My dissertation is actually really short. You'll be surprised, Roberta.
Okay.
I think for most people who are listening to this call right now, storytelling is not the priority. And I'll tell you why. Okay, I'm very controversial.
Have such revolutionary ideas. This is interesting.
I mean, that's why I got into the business, right? Because I felt I had a lot to say in this field. And let me tell you why. Not because storytelling is bad, but because storytelling is vague for beginners. Think of public speaking like this, Roberta. It's like juggling 18 balls at the same time, right? Eye contact, vocal tone variety, pacing. There's a lot of things you have to keep in mind, right? Storytelling is super vague. What does being a great storyteller even mean? Right? Sure, some people have great frameworks on it. I'm a big fan of Donald Miller's work. Sure, he's got story brand, all that stuff, but like it doesn't always apply copy paste. You can't just copy paste this story. Or are you watching Disney movies? Anyways, it's very confusing for someone who's a beginner. I would say the number one priority is work on your foundations. Okay. If you haven't, like the random word exercise, an exercise I recommend my most popular YouTube channel, a video, excuse me. And the exercise is you pick a random word and you just present it. Okay. Like if you haven't done that 100 times, don't even think about storytelling. Because if you do like this, once upon a time, there was like an eagle and this happened. Like if you got terrible technique, who cares about your story? It's going to be shit. Like, so
very
start
boring.
with
started, I was rolling my eyes.
Yeah, I only teach storytelling to my clients when they've perfected technique. Like once I'm happy with everything. Pacing, vocal tone, like I check everything. Body language, vocal tones. Once everything is right, then I give them the opportunity to learn. But until then, I say, guys, it's not worth your time. You're not ready. Yeah.
So it has a moment in the journey of you learning how to speak where you can fit it, but it's not just something everybody must just dive into.
It's like the last level, not the first one.
Like I said, you have such revolutionary ideas, just like you did when you first searched for public speaking tips on YouTube. I really like that. Brenden, the MasterTalk creator. Now tell us where to find you besides your MasterTalk YouTube channel.
Of course, it was such a pleasure to speak with you. What a great conversation.
I really am having fun with this. Yeah.
Likewise. So yeah, for those of you who are interested in coaching, come to my free training. So I do a free training on effective communication over Zoom every few weeks. It's live. It's facilitated by me. It's not a webinar. It's literally a live Zoom call. I'm coaching people on the spot for free. So if you want to register for that, it's rockstarcommunicator.com.
rockstarcommunicator.com.
That's it.
This is free training for how long, Brenden?
It's 90 minutes.
90 minutes. Just one session is free.
No, no. That's actually recurring free. So you can
Oh.
keep coming back to it. So we do it every 3 weeks. You're welcome as many times. That's our give back to the community.
And obviously you
So-
cover different topics and different ideas on public speaking, not just.
So
it's
the
not
free training.
Sorry, carry on.
No, you're fine. So the free training is actually the same 3 topics every single time.
Oh,
But a lot of people come to the free training 5-6 times because they just want to digest it and
of
see it
course,
differently.
yeah,
But the
you're not going
content's
to get
always
it
the
all
same.
the first time. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. Rockstarcommunicator.com. That's for the free training. Your YouTube channel is MasterTalk. Anything else?
That's it.
That's it. Okay. If you want to be an exceptional communicator, not just at work, but in all spheres of your life, please find Brenden on rockstarcommunicator.com for those free trainings, and always watch his YouTube channel, MasterTalk, on YouTube. Thank you so much, Brenden. This has been so much fun.
Likewise, you asked a lot of great questions. Love that.
My pleasure.
Be insane or be the same.